So before you watch this video, I have to comment on two things that happened during the video, which I have to apologize for. The first is I said that the video would take 5 to 6 minutes or so. I ended up doubling that, so I'm sorry for taking more of your valuable time than I expected. Please excuse me for that. The second thing is you might hear my dog walking around or drinking some water, and it's incredibly unprofessional, but it's the best that we can do right now. So I'm sorry. It's kind of the office pet and or the apartment pet. So hope that doesn't distract you too much, and I hope that you still find this content to be enjoyable, to be engaging and stretching for you. So thanks for watching, and I do apologize for those things, and hope that this video helps you glorify God more through design in your church. Thanks, and your video will be starting here in 2 seconds. Hey guys, so for the next few blog posts, I want to create a video to go with it. They're going to cover the same things, but it allows you to watch the video if that's what you'd prefer to do, or either read and get the information that way. So this video is going to go along with our blog post on unforeseen logo costs. And we really want to let you guys know, we want to educate you on all the things that come about when it's time to create and go through design services. So if you would excuse my looking down every now and then, I want to scroll through my notes and make sure that I don't forget anything and leave anything off from this video. So basically, you've decided you want a new logo. You've decided you got the buy-in, you have a committee or you have your church sign off and vote on it, and it's time to create a budget and to reach out to someone to make yourself a logo or make a logo for yourself. Well, there's a bunch of things that go into a new logo that a lot of times we kind of tend to forget about, and it's because it's not directly in the creation process. When we think of a logo, we think of a picture or an icon that you find on a sign or on a piece of paper or on your website. And so when you create a new logo, you just think of replacing it, and then it's there, and then it's brand new, and it looks good, hopefully, and you think everyone's going to like it. But some of the hidden costs that come with the logo come with the renewing or come with the replacing of the old logo. And a lot of these things are like renaming your church. If you go through a church rename, like if you're going from a First Baptist church to like a Hillside Baptist, or if you're getting rid of Baptist altogether, going from a Hillside Baptist to the Church on the Hill, or Hillside Church or Hillside Community Church, whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's a logo or a name change, there's some hidden costs behind it that come with replacing everything that your old name or your old logo was on. So we're just going to go through a list here real quick of things that you might have, or things that the average normative sized church will have that contain a logo or identification of some way. So the last thing I want to cover before we get through this list, it's going to be a really short list. This video shouldn't take much more than 5 or 6 minutes. But the other thing is, not only does, when you create a new logo, you have to replace the logo on all of your other things to make sure everything's up to date and new and fresh, but you also have to think of the things that you've created that mimic or that are consistent with your logo. That may not contain your logo, but your signage or other things that have the same font and the same colors that you find in your old logo, which may be different now that you have a new one, or that will be different when you create a new one. So you got to look for the things that you've created in the past that have a similar logo or a similar font or a similar color, similar structure, however you created consistency across the mediums that your church has, are going to be things that you're going to have to look at changing and updating. So let's go through this list, and I'll leave some commentary on some of these, but for the most part, you're going to understand what it's going to look like to reevaluate or to implement a new logo across all of your church's mediums. So the first thing we got to look at is signage. And this is probably the most obvious of them. You got to look at your internal and your external signage. So internal, we're thinking your classroom numbers or signs inside your classrooms, if you have any sort of logo or anything going on Even if it's the plaque on the outside of the door, I know some churches have their logo on that with the church, like the room number. So you got to look at your classroom signs. You have to look at your specific ministries, and this is a big one, especially today where common practice and kind of the more preferred method of having ministries within your church is that they all have the same name. So if you're, First Baptist Church, then you have First Baptist Students and you have First Baptist Kids. Or if you're a North Community Church and you have a North Kids and a North Student Ministry, you have all these things that go along with each other. And oftentimes you have a logo that mimics or in some way relates to the main logo. So it may not be the exact same logo as a church, but it's going to have the main element of the same logo. And it's going to kind of branch off from there. So there's a consistency across ministries. So if you're thinking about a new church logo, you have to really evaluate if you're going to need new ministry logos as well. And if you're going to have those done, are you going to have them done at the same time, or are you going to have the main one produced and then you're going to have the subsequent tree or branching off of logos for the different ministries created in-house? You're going to have to evaluate how you're going to go about that. Another one is hallways, and this goes along with the signage, but if you have directional signs in your hallways, a lot of times you put a little logo on the side of it and you make it look really nice. The fonts look the same, the colors are the same as your logo. So if you're looking down the hallway and you have signs hanging up, you have to see, are those signs made to be consistent with your logo, made to be consistent with your identity system that comes from the logo? And if so, those would be some things that you're going to have to look at changing or at least updating somehow. Moving on to external signs. So there's 2 or 3 major ones here that are huge costs depending on how you figure out how to do it. And then the main big cost is going to be your street sign. If you're located on a busy intersection, you're going to have a nice big sign out there. Depending on how old or new your church is or how old or new your sign is, some of them are going to be really nice and LED, and changing the logo is going to be as easy as updating the pictures that are sliding through them. Or if you have a more older style church, like I went to a church or I worked at a church that had a huge granite sign in the front yard, something like that's going to be a lot harder and more expensive to change than, say, like an LED sign, or even one with those interchangeable letters. You can have a logo or a new logo put on top of what you had there before for a lot cheaper than a whole new sign altogether. But that's something you're going to have to look at. Is your sign able to change easily, or are you going to have to buy a brand new sign and have labor and a sign company and all that other stuff you're going to have to pay to replace it? And on top of that, a little less costly would be, do you have any like directional signs that you put in the intersections pointing towards your church to get people's attention? Maybe you're still a portable church, or maybe you're just really proactive with trying to help people get to your church if you're off on a side street or something like that. Are these signs consistent with your logo or your old logo, and do they need to be changed when you switch logos? Or are they fairly generic and there isn't much that needs to change? Those are some things that you kind of would realize later on down the road as you're setting them up, as opposed to thinking of it ahead of time. Some other signs that you'll have is like your parking lot signs. Churches that have visitor parking spots, whether you have a permanent sign post in front of them, or if you have just directional signs within the parking lot directing you to, maybe the nursery entrance or visitor parking or anything of the like. Those things you got to check. Do they have logos on them? Are they consistent with the old logo? Do you need to change and update them when you create a new logo? Those things are kind of few and far between. I know a lot of the visitor parking and those things typically are a little more generic than, say, a street sign. But look at those just in case. You need to know all the costs going into it before you decide to pull the trigger on a new logo. And probably the second most expensive signage that you might have to deal with is going to be the signage on your building. Do you have your church name plastered on the side of your building? Maybe you're up close to a street and that's your street sign. Those things are large, whether they're just some sort of plexiglass cutout with color, or if it's a lighted sign, or you have an LED sign on the side of your building, those things are going to be really expensive. Probably not as expensive as a big sign on the street, but it's still something that, is the font that you're using, is it going to be consistent with the new font on your new logo? Is the colors going to be consistent? Is the church name the same? Or are you shortening or changing different elements of it? Are you getting rid of, your fax number on it? Stuff like that are going to be things that you're going to have to think all the way through when you go about updating your logo, or getting a new logo. Moving on to some more external things, some more, maybe not external, but these are more things that are probably going to be pretty commonplace in a normative sized church. The first is like church vehicles. Do you have a bus, or do you have a van? Do you have your church logo on it? Do you have your church name on it? You got to look at that. If you're updating your logo, if you're updating your name, you're going to have to change the information on those vehicles. And sometimes it's as easy as like a vinyl stick on. Other times it's as difficult as taking a wrap off of it, or something like that. So be aware of your church vehicles. What about your business cards? Does your pastoral staff have business cards with your logo on it? Are they going to need to update those logos? Do they need to be aware of the color changes, fonts that are allowed, that sort of thing? Good thing to keep in mind, business cards are fairly cheap. You could get 500 for $20 depending on where you go. But there are things that come later that you don't think about right off the top of your head when you think new logo. What about your emails? You need to check your email signature. Some churches put the logo at the bottom. Some put the picture. Others just put their name. Depending on your church and how you've already structured it, go ahead and look at it and see if you need to change. Luckily, that's going to be free for the most part. It might be different, but it's kind of up to the individual church. And the last one that's going to cost a little bit more money, but it's something that I don't think is as common across the board for the normative sized church. And that's any sort of like merchandise that you have. Some churches have like church hoodies and t-shirts, hats, that sort of thing that you could either buy or they give out. If you have those things, you're going to have to look at changing the logo on them. So it might be ordering a new batch of hoodies or t-shirts that now have the new logo and the new colors. If not, if they're fairly generic, then you don't have to worry about it much. I'm thinking like baptism t-shirts. Sometimes churches just have a generic baptism t-shirt. Other times churches go all out and put their logo on it and do all sorts of customized things. So that's going to be really up to you. And like I said, I don't think it's as commonplace across the board as, say, a business card or a church sign. But those are things you got to look at. All these things are going to have to be updated when you create a new logo. There's going to be new colors, new fonts, just new ways that your logo is laid out and how it works. It's going to look differently on all these different mediums, and you're going to have to evaluate how they work across the board. So a logo is already an expensive thing, and depending on the scale and the scope of the logo design, which we're going to be putting out another video and blog here very shortly about the cost, the hidden cost of design, working with a design company or agency or person. And it's going to cover the scope of the work that the designer is going to go through. So you have to understand that, if you're going to get a new logo, say it looks really good on a sign, but when you shrink it down and you put it on a t-shirt, it might not look as good. So you have to evaluate all these things and how it's going to look across all mediums. Signage, it could be as big as a 6-10 foot sign, something crazy like that. It could be as small as like on the top of your hat, like a little emblems thing. So you have to think about all these things. And it'll change everything that you have with your name and your logo on it. Everything's going to have to be updated and renewed, whether you do it all immediately or that you're intentional about, every few months you're implementing something new. It's going to be something that you're going to have to address, and it's going to be, unfortunately, more cost on your end to really renew everything. But if your name and if your logo is not on everything, then changing your logo is going to be fairly straightforward with prices. But unfortunately for most of us, our name and our logos on quite a lot, and so we're going to have to really take into account all that's going to have to change in order for us to implement a new logo effectively and to do it well. So hope you like this video. Let us know if you're liking this video and blog format. If you don't, we could go back to either a blog, or if you just prefer a video, we could just stick with strictly video content. So thanks again for listening. Again, I'm JC at Anther Branding. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. Feel free to like and subscribe to our page. And also go to our website at antherbranding.com, and you can contact us through there, whether it's through email or through our contact us form. So thanks, guys. I appreciate you giving your time to watch this. And let's glorify God more through design.